Welcome to In All Honesty, the podcast where we get real about life and all the problems that come with it. I'm Michelle Elman, and I'm that friend who we all know is a little bit too honest. You might not come to me when you get back together with your ex, but I'll be there for you when it all goes tits up. Hi, and welcome back to In All Honesty. And today we are reviewing our 2024 goals and setting some goals for 2025. So this is probably one of my strongest rituals. It is a decade strong right now, and all of it stems from my life coach, Michelle Zelli. And have to give her credit for this concept of the yearly review, where basically you look back on the year and you look at your main accomplishments, the things that you've done. And I think the difference between this and other people talking about goal setting and things like that, especially with New Year's resolutions, is I've never seen anyone else frame it as looking back on the year before you look forward and let the lessons and learnings from this year inform your new goals. Because I think we live in a society where it's very tempting to be always on to the next thing. There's a thing called destination addiction, where it's the next thing and the next thing, and not actually take a moment to look back, reflect, and be proud of yourself. So this is my diary. It actually says Michelle Elman on it, and my life coach, Michelle Zelli, did actually get this for me. And I have not looked at this yet. So every year, Michelle sends me a list of questions, and we're going to do it for the following year. When you listen to this episode, I probably will have done it and written it down. And I do take about 4 or 5 hours to do it. It is a very thorough thing. I remember last year, I did this on the plane back from Hong Kong. I also remember right after I did it, I sent my partner a text saying how much I was grateful for him and how he featured so much in my yearly review that I am really looking forward to our future together. And we got off the plane and then he texted the other women's. It's a bit strange looking back on that, considering this is where this is written. And obviously there are things in this where I reflect back on 2023, but looking at this year, the goals I had set under what do I want to accomplish in 2024, the first one is I am engaged and have my wedding planned and booked, as well as decided on when I want to get pregnant. Well, I did decide when I wanted to get pregnant. We had made that decision. We were trying. My wedding was not planned and booked. Didn't get that far, but I did get engaged. So in some ways, I actually ticked that goal despite how depressing it is. One of my goals was that I wanted to continue appearing on This Morning. I did indeed continue appearing on This Morning for the first half of this year up until my breakup, when I took a bit of a break from presenting, another thing I couldn't foresee. I have a management team I adore who has connections in social media and broadcast. At the time of writing this, I didn't have a management team. I actually managed myself for about 3 months and hated it. I despised it. Agents are good at what they do. There is a reason why I don't manage myself. I can't do contracts. I can't do negotiations. And I do indeed have an amazing management team now. I have my 5th book deal at this point. I hadn't got a book deal for Bad Friend yet. I pitched it in January this year. I did indeed get that. And it's coming out next year. My 5th one, I actually completely forgot about this. I didn't think I was thinking about podcasts, but I say I have a new podcast with a whole production team behind it that earns me more than my previous podcast and tops the podcast charts. All of those have been ticked. I have an amazing podcast team. I have a production team behind it. We have hit the podcast charts according to the Spotify Wrapped. We were in the charts for 3 weeks running, and I do in fact earn more than my past podcast has. I think this is also where it's important to look back and realize that over the course of a year, your goals change a lot. There are a lot of goals here on Substack. And as we know, in about April this year, I quit Substack. I found it wasn't bringing me joy. We are so happy and our wedding planning was easy and effortless. I think I was quite worried about the wedding planning stage. And clearly at this point, we had not decided to elope. I think we made that decision in January. We were going to have a very short engagement, elope. And I think the plan was we were going to get married in June. I was already quite concerned about wedding planning and the stress it would put on us because I'm not good at event planning. And I did worry about that. And going forward, I probably will still elope in the future because the idea of throwing a wedding was stressing me out before I was even engaged. My next goal was that I wanted to make new friends. And as we know, I've been going on friendship dates and I have indeed made new friends. I put 3 new friends here because I believe goals should be specific. I don't know whether I made 3 new friends. It's really hard to find the line of what someone counts as new because there are a lot of people who were acquaintances who I voice note regularly and are in my life a lot more, but I definitely would say it's more than 3. My next goal was to go abroad 3 times this year, and I did indeed do that. I actually think I went abroad more than that. The next question was, what traits do you want to strengthen in order to achieve this and have your best year yet? And I had written ability to rest in calm and be able to enjoy the boredom and be assured that it's only temporary. I think I did get better in that. There was a lot of quiet periods this year. Believing I'm a lucky person who attracts miracles effortlessly and that deserve good things happen to me. I think I've always believed that everything I achieve has to be really hard work, and I was really trying to focus on the mindset that actually not all things have to be that hard work, that things can be easy and effortless. You'll notice the word easy and effortless throughout this a lot, because this is a framing and a wording that I use a lot in my goal setting. One of my traits was I wanted to become more independent in my romantic relationship and be more secure in being apart. We spent a lot of time together, so that's why that was there. Obviously, things change. And then my ability to communicate clearly, calmly, and accurately. And I think that was something I already did, but I just wanted to strengthen even more. What traits do I need to reduce? Mental vigilance. I put mental hypervigilance. Let your brain go quiet. You don't have to always be thinking. Seeing the negative only, especially in the good things that are happening. I do have a very strong negativity bias, and I think that's where I was working on that. I think considering this year was so negative, I have achieved that. What habits are still getting the best of me? Pushing people away when I feel hurt. Yes, that is something I will be working on for a very long time. Taking things personally when they aren't. I do this a lot in business, and I think it's because my work is so personal and includes so many elements of my personal life, and that became even worse this year. And I do think sometimes I have to remember, for example, when they're editing my book, that they're not editing the story of my life. They are, but they're editing words on a page. They're not editing me. New habits I will cultivate to help achieve these new goals. No social media after 6 p.m. That has thoroughly gone out the window, but actually in a good way. There was a lot of strictness and rigidness to being in a relationship with someone who had a 9 to 5, and I actually find I work better in the evenings. So I'm having later starts and I am working into the evenings, and I'm good with that, and it makes me feel better to wake up at 10 in the morning and work till 2 in the morning. Take 5 minutes to feel the win of the accomplishment, to focus on the positive. I did not do that, but that was a very good idea. And I really should have. Not checking social media for the first hour I wake up. Again, something that slipped. I think a lot of these new habits that I wanted for myself changed because it became a year where I just gave myself a lot of grace. And my 2024 words for life, I chose elevate, fun, vivaciousness. I certainly did that, you know. It was a vivacious year. I just wanted to have a lot of energy in this year. For work, fruition, bloom, and support. I have increased the support. It might have taken all year to find the right support, but actually I am in a place, this dream of having support in my career and not being a one-man band really did happen. It's just really happened in the last month. For friendship, I wanted connection, and for energy, I wanted enthusiasm and energy. Actually, when I look back on me writing this, I was so ill. I was really just running out of energy, and I just was really hoping 2024 would be a year that would bring me more energy, and it certainly did, but it also coincided with a man leaving my life that brought the energy back and made me realize there was probably a person in my life taking away that energy. I think sometimes you have to look back on these goals to realize that, first of all, your goals can change. You can want something different, but also take a moment to set those goals for the year ahead. So part of the yearly review is also looking at your current year. And one of the first questions that Michelle suggests asking yourself is, what were your greatest challenges this year? Obviously, the breakup was one of mine. I've had a number of team changes that has been difficult for me, especially like facing my fear around contracts and negotiations. Learning to manage myself at the beginning of the year was really hard. And then also, I think there was one of my greatest challenges was how many emotions the breakup brought up. That largely how I felt day to day felt so out of my control. And I think another challenge this year was a lot of people fell out of my life, not just my ex. I had a friendship breakup the day before I went on this morning to talk about my breakup. And there was something about the breakup that made me look at other areas of my life and just not tolerate any nonsense. And that made me a bit strict and probably a little bit too harsh at times. But I just had no desire to pretend or be fake. And so there were a number of people who I'd probably been overlooking the fact they exaggerated a lot and at times lied, and those people disappeared because for so long I gave them grace by being like, well, they never lie about me and they never lie to me, they just lie about themselves. But considering my ex was one of those people who lied to himself and I didn't really realize that until the breakup, I don't want people who lie to themselves. I want self-aware people who are emotionally intelligent. The next question is, what traits have I strengthened this year? I have strengthened my ability to stay functional while having really big emotions. In the past, my emotions swayed how I did things, but there were so many times this year I had a really important work thing and I just had to go and do the thing and cry later. I think another thing I really strengthened this year was the ability to detach from my work. Something about the breakup meant that nothing was important anymore. And I just took the temperature down on all my work and realized that in the context of life, none of it's really that important. I think I've gone stronger in trusting my intuition. I've got stronger in trusting the timing of things. There was something about my breakup that felt like I was being protected from some really awful outcome. And so I think that strengthened my spirituality, my belief that things work out for the better. And ultimately, I really strengthened my boundaries around who has access to me. If you told me this time last year that we would break up and that I would not speak to him for 6 months, that would have been out of my world. I would have thought that I wouldn't have been able to be strong enough, have that willpower. And it's just come down to the fact that I know what I deserve and I'm not entertaining people who treat me that way. And I already think there was that part of me, but that's definitely something I've strengthened this year. What were your greatest mindset shifts this year? That's a good question. I feel like this year I just grew up. There was something about what I went through that just put the accelerator on any aspect of me that needed to grow up. I find within business, I am much more of a businesswoman, where in the past I was probably quite like girly and young and caring whether people like me. Now I'm a bit more firm. I know what I want. I ask for what I need. And I've got the right people around me. Across all of my work now, I have realized one of the things I really need in the workplace is I need direct people who will just tell me how it is. And I don't need the nicety blowing smoke up my ass. And I really respect people who can just tell me, like, and be honest with me. And I think it's likely linked to the breakup and the fact that I despise lying anyway, but I really found this radar to now detect when people are lying to themselves or just schmoozing me. And I don't want that in any area of my life. And I think I finally have a team who's very direct with me. And I think it's important to be your best self, that you don't surround yourself with yes men who will tell you what needs to happen to create the best things. And yeah, I'm just really grateful I have those people around me, whether it's in my personal life or it's in my professional life. That mindset of like where in the past I probably needed to be bubble wrapped and everything a little bit sugar coated so I didn't have my feelings. Oh, that's another mindset shift. I'm so good at not putting my feelings in it. There were times this year where so many things happened where I think in the past I would have got upset or I would have been personally offended and just realized, look, everyone's doing their best. And that's another mindset shift. They're like pouring out of me right now. But everyone's trying their best. There was something so acutely present in my mind of there are so many people you walk past in the street who are just going through major life things. Like when I was walking through the airport and just like sobbing, and every person who walked past me, I just had this awareness that like they're probably going to be thinking, what the hell's going on with her? But where I'm an easy crier, there are so many people you walk past in the street who are going through major things and you don't know what they're going through. So give everyone a little bit more grace, and everyone's doing the best they can. And even if they do things wrong, and even if they do things with the bad intentions, including my ex, for the most part, I actually think humans aren't trying to hurt each other. For the most part, I actually think people are just, you sometimes are collateral damage to the pains and wounds that that person is trying to work through and work on in themselves. And that's where I've actually become a very forgiving person this year. I've never been a very forgiving person. I found it very hard to forgive ex-friends. I have a lot of resentment about past work relationships as well, especially when they've affected my income. And this year, just being able to immediately forgive my ex, it trickled down to so many other things. The fact that 4, 5 ex-friends reached out after my breakup gave me so much peace. And it meant I was able to have conversations with them where we could actually heal and be like, look, we don't want to be friends again, but there's no bad blood. I'm always wishing the best for you and I'm rooting you from afar. When I ended romantic relationships with this year with the guys I was dating after my ex, same. There was a guy I texted last night who was like, hey, loved our phone call, don't think we're a great match. And he responded saying, that's a shame, but I'll be rooting for you from afar. And that's kind of the mentality I want to have. I don't want to be holding grudges anymore. I don't want to be carrying. It's a heavy burden. And like, life is heavy enough. We don't need more heaviness. So before we get into my goals for the new year and the goals that I think you should be setting for the new year, let's have a listen to this week's message.
Hi Michelle, I've got a question around setting New Year's goals. Previously, when I've set goals, it's almost as if setting them has triggered me to then feel like I don't want to do them. I think that's because they often feel so strict and rigid. So I wondered if you had any ideas for how to set goals that feels more fluid and fun and more relaxed. Thank you.
I totally hear that. I made a joke to someone recently that if you tell me to do something and I'm already doing it, it makes me really resentful because I hate being told what to do. And it's almost like you're writing these goals for yourself, but then you see them as demands or instructions. And so your brain rebels against them. I do believe specific goals are important because then you don't know if you've achieved them. But I think where you actually need to practice a little bit more is to let them go. So I set these goals and I am not looking at them every day, which is why that podcast goal really surprised me because I've not looked at it since I set it. I set it and then I let it go. And I think that's where if you're not constantly looking at your goals, obviously have a vague awareness of what direction you want to go in, but don't be checking every week whether you've achieved your goals. I think we need to remove this idea of pass or fail around a lot of the goals we set. And this is what leads us to being disheartened. So for example, let's say you've put a workout goal of you want to go to the gym 3 times a week. And that's very specific, but you don't want to make it so narrow that if you get to a point and you only go twice a week, you focus on that rather than focusing on the fact you went 2 times more than you would have done if that goal didn't exist. So it's about loosening the framework around that will really benefit you. I don't think the specific part is the part you struggle with. I think what's more likely to be a struggle is you viewing them as demands or being told what to do, even if it's being told what to do by your past version of yourself. And this is where I think a reframing might help. Instead of like, this is something you have to do or you must do or you want to do even, reframe it as something you get to do. Like you get to set that goal. It's such a small change in language, but it's a massive change in energy. And saying something like, I get to go to the gym 3 times a week. A lot of people can't work out even if they want to. They're stuck in a hospital bed and they're bedridden. I remember times in my life when I was doing that. Those kind of things, it's a different energy when you realize that everything you want and desire, all the goals you are setting, they're all opportunities. And looking at it from that mindset should hopefully feel less heavy, less of a burden. And if you can work on reducing the pass fail mentality, that should also help lighten the load. So going into 2025, find some time today to go sit down and write some new goals about the direction you want to go in. And for me, I think it's really important that they are SMART goals. If you've not heard of this, I'm going to explain it. S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for achievable, R stands for realistic, T stands for timed. Essentially, when you are setting goals, how I phrase it is the 31st of December, 2025, and I have. You put it in the past tense, you have a time frame, you make sure it's measurable, so it's a specific thing, like 3 times a week, not just I want to work out more, because then you don't know if you've achieved it, but also it means you'll always fail at it because what's more and like what does that even mean? And then also achievable. You don't want to be setting yourself a goal of running a marathon when you've not even done a 5K. I think we want to make it something that you're not setting yourself up from failure from the get-go. When I look at the goals I want to set in 2025, there are going to be a lot of career goals. I also want to set some dating goals. I look forward to dating and properly getting into it and having a lot more lightness in my 2025. I think 2025 is going to be a great year. I wasn't excited. I was actually kind of dreading 2025 until the last month. And in December last year, I suddenly started feeling this shift of energy, feeling a lot more lighter, and I look forward to doing that. So as you list out what you want to achieve in 2025, I would also ask you to look at what traits you want to strengthen in the next year. I think for me, I want to follow that path of being even stricter, even firmer, having better boundaries in my workplace, and also just knowing what I want a bit more. I think I've, for the last few years, experimented a lot in different things. And I think now I know what I want, I can go for it with full force. And I have the right team around me as well, which has taken a very long time to get in place. But I have good people. I have good people around me, and that you can be the best in the world. But if you are knocking on doors and no one is helping you, you will get exhausted. And ultimately, you need people who believe in you as much as you believe in yourself. And like, yes, we talk a lot about self-esteem and belief and confidence in yourself, but it can't just be that. You need people who also are rooting for you as well. They're the people who open the doors for you. They're the people knocking down doors alongside you. It's also important to look at the traits you are reducing. So what traits do you want to diminish in 2025? In past episodes, you heard me talking about how I've recognized that I always kind of have this low level of stress all the time. I really want to work on that. I want to work on being more present. I've been doing a lot of body work around trauma, releasing that. And I look forward to actually processing a lot more of my past trauma, especially around my surgeries, because I don't want to be carrying it in my body any longer. And then in terms of my friendships, and I want to really put some energy into that in 2025. I also have my book coming out, and I have set some pretty high goals for that, and I actually think we can achieve it this time. It's my 5th book. I want a bestseller, and I think I'm going to get it. And the final thing I would say is take a look at your habits. What do you need to create in terms of habits? Make this specific. The same way I said no social media after 6 p.m. Obviously, I'm not going to be setting that this year. I've realized it's not one that benefits me. But set these habits and actually make an active effort. These are the things that you can actually focus on. Focusing on the habits as opposed to the goals is more practical, and putting in habits that make you feel better. And I think this year has been a learning lesson as well, in terms of there are a few months where I let all my habits slip, and I gave myself a lot of grace, and I probably needed it at that time. But having all your habits slip and then you turn around 2 months later and you wonder why you feel miserable, well, because every single thing that used to make you feel good, you aren't doing anymore. So putting all of that back in place has been really important and has done wonders for my mental health. I hope you're looking forward to 2025. I hope you're entering next year with a lot of positivity. And also, if you're not, New Year's is an arbitrary date. I like doing these goal settings and these reviews every quarter because I think otherwise we view New Year's as the only option to start again. But if you're not in the mood or the mindset, I would tell yourself to challenge yourself to get in that mindset. I think it's important to remember New Year's is not your only chance to set goals. It should be something you are doing regularly. I don't personally do it like every month on the dot. I just do it when I feel like it's time, or when something's occurred in my life where everything just goes out the window and you want to start from scratch. Obviously, all the things I thought were going to be in my future when I set these goals in January were very different. They changed again in May after the breakup. And so just looking at them and realizing you're allowed to let the goals that you thought you wanted go. And sometimes what you thought you wanted doesn't happen because it's for the best. And something I am working on is something I actually mentioned within the episode, is that I have gone through loads of team changes this year. And I've largely not spoken about it because my teams follow me, even my ex-teams, like people, ex-managers, ex-agents, they all follow me. And so I don't like putting it on my page because I think that's where my personal boundary of like, I don't talk about the business side on my social media. It's not fair to the people I work with. But ultimately, those team changes personally for me were very difficult. It brought a lot of change and uncertainty. For example, I started with a new management team the day after my breakup. The first time I met my new management team, who I had for the majority of this year, was the day after my breakup. And I literally had to bring my publicist along because I just didn't know how to have that meeting. That publicist is no longer with me either because she has also left. And a large portion of the changes in my team aren't personal. They're people I'm still friends with. They're people I love. But things change and people change jobs. And as a result, there were a lot of really sad moments. My literary agent of 7 years, I'm no longer with her. I'm with someone else because she moved into fiction and I write nonfiction. There are some very practical things that mean I can't work with a lot of people I love anymore, and new people come in. This is where I'm learning to be more adaptable, to be more flexible. You can still grieve it. It's sad when someone changes jobs. It's sad when you're not working together, but it creates space for new things. Like, I am still friends with my publicist. We went for drinks 2 days ago because it makes room for a new relationship to evolve. And I have been very lucky and fortunate that with all working relationships, I have actually ended all of them on good terms. And I hope for that to always be the case. And I look forward to 2025 being the year of no changes, no team changes. No one's allowed to quit. No one's allowed to change jobs. No one's allowed to change industries. Enough. We now need stability and certainty. And I look forward to that being my year in 2025. Thank you so much for listening. Happy New Year for tonight, and hope you have wonderful New Year's Eve plans. And if you don't, out of the last 31 New Year's Eves I have celebrated, I would say I have been asleep for probably 25 of them. I don't care to stay up till midnight, which is so funny because every other day of the year I'm up till 2 a.m. But for some reason, that rebellious nature in me, New Year's Eve is the one where I get an early night. And so if you don't have big plans, don't worry about it. The new year will come anyway, and you can wake up with fresh eyes and without a hangover. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to give me a New Year's Eve present, why don't you leave me a review and a rating? I really appreciate you listening, and hit subscribe and follow as well. Thank you.